Hello everyone, I'm Fozzie, or Cam, and welcome to the Everything Podcast. We're a little late this week with our episode, but it's fine. Just a day late, it's not that big of a deal, and you might have heard another episode, but we changed our release dates to now Wednesdays. You'll get a podcast from us, and we'll try to stick to that, but things happen, we have lives to live. Um, but yeah, we'll try to stick to that. But yeah, I'm here as always with my co-host Will. Will, how you doing today?
Doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. So we have a different episode planned for you guys today. I wanted to talk about some music today, which is a topic that should be covered more for on the podcast. I mean, because we're all both of us are big music people. I mean, I just don't see why we don't talk about it as much. I mean, here or there we'll drop it in, but not as much as movies or sports. Which I think is wrong. I think we need to add more music to the show. But I wanted to talk about our favorite artist. I feel like that's a good place to start off. So I'll let you start off, Will. Artists you've been listening to recently, and yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll start here. John Legend's latest album came out last month called Legend, and that was an album that I've been listening to, and I thought it was kind of a step back from his album from 2020. His album from 2020 was called Bigger Love, and it was fantastic. I think he has some of his best songs on there: Conversations in the Dark, Never Break. I think that those are two of his best songs. His album Bigger Love from 2020 was like exactly what everybody needed during
Mm-hmm.
COVID at that time. It was an
Yeah.
uplifting album. There are songs that I like on his new album, but it's just kind of a bit too poppy, everything kind of sounding similar
Oh,
to
really?
me.
Well,
So
yeah.
it's a solid album. I like it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as his previous one
Totally, yeah.
from 2020.
I think that's kind of a problem with music nowadays, is that a lot of it just sounds the same as all the songs, you know? You have one pop song by Katy Perry, and then you'll have another one by Halsey, and they sound similar.
Yeah, and I would say like something that was a bit of like look, like John Legend writes remarkable songs, all of me, or ordinary people. Like he has the ability to write amazing songs, but then there are also these like songs I listen to on his latest album, and I'm like, you're like this big songwriter getting paid. I feel like you could come up with lyrics more complex than this. Like just like an entire chorus of a song just being like with like the phrase all I want is you, just like being like repeated like four straight times, and that's like the whole chorus of the song. So like one of the issues that I had is I'm like listening to these songs, and I feel like people can write more complex lyrics than
Hmm.
just the simple stuff that they do.
I totally agree, and you just get a lot of basic stuff nowadays. You get lines like that. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's catchy. It gets a lot of listens. It gets a
Right.
lot of people talking about it. But I mean, let's take "Say So" by Doja Cat. I mean, that's a song that had the word "say so many times in the song. The words "say so" were said too many times. And that's a common thing in music now, which is unfortunate. And it's getting kind of repetitive, and that's not just with modern pop, it's like that with rap too, modern rap. And it's crazy because there was a time where like everyone had their own unique sound, you know? You had the Beatles, then you had the Rolling Stones. Everyone kind of had their own unique sound. And granted, there are still people like that today, and I'm not saying it's just basic sounds, basic lyrics, repetitive sounds, you know. I'm not saying
Right.
that that's all there is, but a good 40% of music we hear today is repetitive, boring, just a
Right.
standard song you hear on the radio. I
Yeah.
mean, there are people breaking that rule, like you have Adele, you have John Legend, except I guess on his latest album. You have, I don't know, people like Maroon 5, people just being truly inventive.
By the way, speaking of Maroon 5, did you hear the what Adam Levine was accused of recently?
What?
So some report came out, like some woman or something said that like she had had an affair with him in like 2021, and other women came out with some other accusations, and then Adam Levine said that he didn't have an affair, but that he did do stuff at a regrettable time in his life that was of harm to his family, and that he would never do that again. I would like to say how disgusted I was to hear that. I saw Maroon 5 in concert. I listened to their music. I watched Adam Levine on The Voice and enjoyed him there. I was so disgusted by that report. He has got a lot of work to do to earn my respect back at this point.
Really?
I was so disgusted to hear that. I mean, come on. Like, what is marriage about, Adam? Like, come on.
But from what you're saying, do you think his family probably knew about it?
Doesn't well he said that he did things at like he said that he did things that were of harm to his family. Yeah. So he said that he didn't have an affair, but he basically admitted to doing things with women that would be of harm to his own family and his own wife, which I just cannot support.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. I don't want to talk on it too much because I haven't heard enough about it. But I'm gonna read into that. But I feel like that's just an unfortunate thing to happen. He apologized, and that's a good thing. But like you said, he's gonna have to do quite a lot to regain.
But anyway, sorry to cut in. Please continue with what you were saying.
All right, so I wanted to talk about some of the artists I've been listening to right now. I mean, it's kind of a wide variety, but let's talk about Gorillaz. And Gorillaz are a band that I recently got into, and they're coming with a new album in February, actually, of 2023, called Cracker Island, and they've released a few singles, and they are okay, because Gorillaz started off as a kind of like a rock pop band, a little bit of hip hop mixed in there, but now it's kind of just pop hip hop. You don't get much of that rock in songs like, I don't know, Dare, you might want to call a rock song, or Murdoch is God, that's another rock song. You don't get as much from them as much anymore, which disappoints me. And that's another thing, they're coming more in with the flow, into that basic sound, and they're not even close to being as bad as some of these artists are, just sounding so generic. But it's really obvious that they're just trying to get more centered, and I feel like their only reasoning for that is to get more people listening to them,
Yep.
Because at first, I'm sure when Gorillaz started, which it's a complicated thing. They're not, you know what, if you guys want to look into Gorillaz, it'll make more sense. But when Gorillaz started, they made music. They just wanted to make music, but now it's getting more and more into let's just make some money, and we can make some good music as well. It's kind of a different game now.
It's tough when it enters into that point where you're like doing it for money without putting the effort in.
But the thing is, I don't think they're not putting the effort in. I just think they're just trying to go the more basic route, which I guess means putting a little less effort in.
Right.
But they still have an interesting sound. They have interesting lyrics. And so they're not fully at that level of being basic yet, but I just don't want to see them become that,
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about Bruce real quick. Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're all fans of him here.
He was on Howard Stern's show.
Did you listen to the full interview?
I watched all the clips that have come out
Yeah.
on the Howard Stern YouTube channel, so yes.
So, I am really happy that this came out, and it was so weird. Because I see Bruce on, he was on Stephen Colbert that one time,
Yeah.
and he looked a lot more uncomfortable on that show. He was on Jimmy Fallon once, right? He looked more
Yep.
uncomfortable on that show, but when he was on Howard Stern, he was kind of just going with the flow, He had his guitar. Maybe that's why he was
Well,
just
yeah,
going with the flow.
I mean, having like something that you like center your life around, like I think I've heard like Springsteen talk about like when you're just like strumming your guitar while you're talking, that can calm you down. So I'm
Yeah.
sure that was the case, and I also think like when I watch him on like Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert, I also think he's just older and stuff, so it takes him a bit more time to like think things over and say what he wants to say. Like I would say like the oldest I've seen him look would probably be his interview with Stephen Colbert last year. Like his age showed a bit more to me.
Yeah.
But not on this Howard Stern interview where I thought he was great.
I just think he felt a lot more comfortable with Howard Stern, which is random. Because, I mean, Howard Stern used to be kind of controversial. Now he's kind of
my dad gave me just a little taste of all the controversial things Howard Stern has done. I couldn't even wrap my head around it. I mean, crazy, but he's changed enough to where Bruce Springsteen would want to go on his show, and Springsteen gave him credit for, I guess, a very personal and vulnerable interview that he did in 2019 that Springsteen had a lot of respect for.
Wow. And I was also listening to him talk about the new Taylor Swift album. How his daughter loved it and how he enjoyed it. That just made me so happy to hear. I mean, he just has so much respect for modern music,
Great.
And I'm just so happy to hear that. It just makes me really happy that he listens to the same music that we do, and he likes it.
Yeah, and he obviously did a bunch of, piano and, solo acoustic performances.
It's kind of like Springsteen on Broadway.
Absolutely. Springsteen with the E Street Band is unmatched, but Springsteen on the solo acoustic guitar and like solo piano like he did on the Howard Stern show is so intimate and powerful and
it's like he's talking to you.
It's just, I love Springsteen with the E Street Band and solo Springsteen equally and for different reasons.
Of course.
Better, both great.
Yeah, you have, when he plays with the E Street Band, you have him rocking with the crowd, really singing, really getting into it, really getting fired up. And then you have his solo sessions where he really, it's like he's talking to you. He tells stories, which he still does with the E Street Band, but it gets more personal, It gets deeper into his stories, And he especially on Broadway, it's so cool. He's playing his own background music on the guitar while telling...
Springsteen on Broadway is a stunning event.
A masterpiece. He'll interrupt songs to, finish a story. And that's just such a cool thing. And, yeah, Springsteen on Broadway is great. And I feel like the Howard Stern thing was kind of similar to it. Although I do wish he played some of his new stuff. Just one of the new singles that he came out with.
Yeah. Well, Howard Stern did play a sample of Night Shift, but Springsteen didn't actually perform the song. They just listened to it and talked about the upcoming album.
Yeah.
I would have loved if he did a song from Letter to You.
That would have been nice, but I think he's saving that for the tour.
Yes.
And maybe he might, to be honest with you, because he's probably rehearsing like crazy right now. He might be sick of Letter to You, to be honest.
Yeah. And me and my dad will be going up a state to Portland next February to see Bruce Springsteen.
That might just be what you have to do, because he's...
Wouldn't do it for anybody other than Springsteen, so that shows how big a deal he is in this house.
Yeah. I know we had talked about trying to get tickets at the TD Garden, but it would have to be behind the stage, which would be unfortunate, but...
Although both of my parents have told me that they've seen, these three bands behind the stage
Have
before,
they?
and that it's fantastic.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. Actually, that's good to know because I'm sure they'll have it on the screen too.
Oh yeah, I
So
am sure. Yeah.
I'm not crazy worried, but
And I'm like, I think me and my dad might be behind the stage as well.
oh,
Look,
all right,
would I prefer in front of the stage to behind the stage?
of
Absolutely.
course.
But it calms me down a bit. Like my mom actually raves about some of the behind the stage
Really?
experiences she's had seeing Springsteen. So that calms me down because otherwise I'd be a little nervous.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Um, but now I want to do an awful segue into our next topic: albums. Um, that is something I definitely have to work on in this podcast transitions.
It's okay.
Um, so best albums or albums we're listening to right now, albums that we really enjoy.
Yeah, I'll say one that I've listened to, and then I'll talk about one that's coming out tomorrow,
Oh, all
actually.
right.
So I mentioned John Legend's album, and then I was also listening. Imagine Dragons put out a 10-year anniversary edition of their album Night Visions, which is your favorite Imagine Dragons album, and I would have to agree with you now that I've listened to all the songs, and I just really enjoyed it. They put some live songs on there, some acoustic versions of their songs, some bonus tracks. It was the Imagine Dragons that I think everybody's come to know and love. So glad that they put that out because that's a monumental landmark album for them, their debut album.
Of course, yeah. I honestly don't think anything by them has matched that. You know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you make something that's great, it's hard to do it again. That's just part
Yeah.
of the business.
So albums for me, the albums I like the most are ones that tell a story. You know, it could
Yeah.
be about a character that the artist creates. It could be about
Springsteen does an amazing job
he
with
sure does.
character
And
stories.
something I think Springsteen does is tell a story with individual songs and albums,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoy when they just tell a story. You don't get that with modern music nowadays.
Yeah.
Like maybe modern music now tells like us about like an experience they had, or what they experienced. Like not a story, not like a story that's steeped in detail and you know. But one of my favorite albums is Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars by David Bowie, which tells the story of the Starman. I mean, pretty much of Ziggy Stardust, and it's just a really cool album. And obviously, it's not about David Bowie because well, David Bowie's not from Mars or or Starman. But it's about his character Ziggy Stardust that he created through his music, which is really impressive. And it's just such a cool album to listen to. And the opening track on that album is easily one of my favorite songs of all time. 5 Years by David Bowie. It is such a good song. It is probably the most emotional song I have ever listened to. And it builds up and 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 boom. It's just such a satisfying song when you get to that big moment and you're just working your way up. It's just such a masterpiece of a song. And you also have albums by rappers who I feel like David Bowie himself has said it. He said, but when he was alive, that he feels the only people who are really being creative and really trying new things in the music community are the rappers, are the people making hip-hop music. They're the ones who are really being inventive and creating new things, you know? Creating new sounds and new styles. And I'll have to agree with him. I'm not the craziest rap guy, but it's not like rap, it's like poetry. You have people like Kendrick Lamar who just, it's like poetry, and it's crazy. And you have this album To Pimp a Butterfly, and it's just such a interesting album. It's like a hip hop jazz album, which is something I never thought I'd say in the same sentence. Hip hop and jazz. It if you listen to it, it really is kind of like a jazz album, and it's really cool to listen to. And you have albums by people like Donald Glover, like "Awaken My Love," and it's just such a great album. And it's crazy how these rappers are able to do this, you know? Because I was never a big rap guy, and then I started getting into Kendrick Lamar and all these other people, and now I realize that, yeah, they are being creative. Yeah, they are doing new things, you know?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'll just mention this quickly, just since I enjoy the Avett Brothers. Seth Avett of the Avett Brothers,
Oh,
his
yes.
album Seth Avett Sings Greg Brown is coming out tomorrow. Actually, and the two songs that have been released from the album, uh, Good Morning Coffee and Laughing River. I thought Seth did a great job covering both of those songs. I really fell back in love with how amazing his voice is. So I'm excited for tomorrow. I'll be definitely checking it out.
All right, nice. I might check it out too, you know? Why not?
Yeah. And also, while we're on this music topic, I will say this, something I've really enjoyed doing recently with shows like, Stranger Things and
mhm.
Cobra Kai and different movies that I've seen. Like, I love what I love now, like when I'm like watching something and I see a song and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna, look up what this song is. Like, I'm really enjoying right now getting into the music of some of my favorite movies and shows, because
Totally.
it just makes me discover all these great songs. So that's something I've really enjoyed doing
Totally, yeah.
recently. Like, for instance, the scene in Cobra Kai season 5 episode 10 where Johnny beats up the senseis of Cobra Kai after he sees the photo of his son. The song that they had going along to that was uh, Running Wild by Airborne, and I listened to that song and I have such a love for it because of how it was used in that particular scene. So I've really enjoyed listening to songs from shows and movies that I've seen recently and that I'm into. So that's always fun to do.
Yeah. And the song My Way I had always loved by Frank Sinatra. And it hearing it in Cobra Kai and how they used it just enhanced my love for that song.
Oh,
That
they did a fantastic job.
could possibly be one of my favorite songs of all time. It's just another emotional, heartfelt song
Like,
that's
yeah,
upbeat in a way, in a weird way.
think about what shows could do to these songs. Like, think about, like, running up that hill by Kate
Yeah.
Bush.
Oh my
It's not like
goodness.
it would be very, maybe popular per se, but the way that they use it in the scene with Max in season 4, it just goes boom, and you love the song because of how it's used in the show. It gives it gives it this like whole other meaning.
Stranger Things, in a way, revived Kate Bush's career.
And also, look at what they've done by using Master of Puppets. Now they
Oh
have
my
all these new
goodness.
Metallica fans, and I love that song because of how it's used in the show.
Yeah. Yeah, now Metallica's getting more popular and more popular. But there are people who are just fans of Master of Puppets and say they're Metallica fans, which does annoy me. But, you know.
Oh, look, allow me to say this. If I am not going to say that I listen to, like, if I just listen to like one song by a band from like a soundtrack or something, I will never ever say that I listen to and
Of
am a
course, don't
fan
do
of
that.
that band. No, no, no. I don't do that. I may say
That's
that
good.
I may say that I loved that song, but I'm not gonna act like I'm a master of that band, because no, no, no. I know the real way to do things.
Of course, of course. So now I wanted to talk about singles. And what does that mean? um, so, singles are usually what artists do before they release an album or
Yeah.
do something big, you know?
Yeah.
And
I would love to get into just like, your thoughts on how much they've become just something that's released before albums now. Like, 3 songs at times.
I know, and there are two things I think can happen. Well, not two things. I don't want to limit myself to that. So there are people who are kind of like singles artists who don't have a very well put together album, who don't really tell a story with their albums, but have really good singles when they come out with them, you know? And I'm blanking on examples here, but you know, it's kind of songs you hear on the radio, like Halsey. She'll come out with a single, but then she'll come out with an album that will be significantly less popular than the single that released before it. So that's why I think they can be a bad thing. They can kind of just be the only thing people really care about. You can get labeled by that one single you released, you know? There are also people who do it to gain excitement for their upcoming album, which is going to have more great songs on it. But then, sometimes they put out too many singles, which is what I think Bruce is on the edge of with his new album, but that's just an example. Because if you're going to do an album and to promote it, kind of put out a single beforehand, maybe 3 should be the max, because in a way, it's a spoiler for the album, you know? And that's not, it's like if you had if you had like 15 minutes of a scene of a movie. You don't want that. That's a spoiler. That's not what you want, right? So yeah, I think that singles can be annoying, kind of. And I just don't think it's good for artists at the end of the day, outside of just promoting. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and yeah, I mean, I feel like if you put out even like let's say you have an album as short as 10 songs and you put out three
Yeah, that's
singles.
ridiculous.
That leaves only 7 more songs, and it's just like not it's just not as it's just not as enjoyable when you listen to the album, because
It's like you've already heard the album.
you don't feel like you're getting as much, you know, fresh stuff. So I feel like we should get to a point where the amount of singles released should, I mean, I think just one is actually a smart thing to do. Like the one song to get, like, to maybe set the mood for the album, wet your whistle, get you excited, and then that's it. Because like 3, like that's just not right. Like I remember something like totally ridiculous. One Republic's latest album, Human, that came out in 2020. I know like COVID had to do with this and it like postponed the album, but they put out so many singles that like half of the album was released before it actually came out, so you can't like enjoy it as much. So I feel like putting out too many singles can be a flaw for sure, and that's a great example of it.
I agree. I feel like the smartest way all these singers and artists could utilize singles is releasing a single, I don't know, 2 months before the album releases, and then one single before the album releases, and then like one right like a week before it releases, because one will get you hyped up for the album, then it might start to go down, and one a week before which will get you really hyped up, and will just flow straight into the album's release, you know?
Actually, just putting out your one single a week before is a smart move, because like you could have it like the week before, right when it comes out. It'll keep people's attention for a week, make you want to hear more. Whereas if you put it out like months before, people might kind of forget about your album as much. But if you put it out just like a week before, that might keep your attention toward it. So like I feel like just putting out one single and putting it out a week before your album releases would be a smart move. But like, to even poke holes and just putting out one single, I feel like when there are these singles that come out and then I listen to the album, I remember songs from the album that aren't singles, but I've heard the singles so many times that like those are the songs that loop in my head, and the others just kind of drift out because I've heard the singles so much, and that's just what kind of defines the album for me.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's I 100% agree with you there. And now we have another bad transition. Music videos. So yeah, I want to talk about music videos in a similar
What
way.
are your thoughts on them, Kim?
So I feel like it's a way that musicians can become filmmakers, because oftentimes you see the artist who creates the music direct the music video, which is what I really like to see. Taylor has done it before. Taylor Swift has done it before. Um, I really admire people who direct their own music videos, because it's a really cool thing to do. It's a most music videos are like short films. They show the story that the song is telling. It's just it's an added experience when listening to the song. It's a more detailed experience than just listening to the song. And I feel like that's a really cool thing to do. And I know Taylor Swift had a 10-minute music video with one of her 10-minute songs, and she directed it, and Sadie Sink starred in the music video,
Nice.
which was really interesting to see. So I feel like artists today can really utilize music videos and make them artistic, make them have their own style, be experimental with them. And I see that with people like Kendrick Lamar, whose music videos are always outstanding. He always at least has a producer credit for his music videos, and it just really impresses me. Um, but what are your thoughts on music videos? Well, I really.
Yeah, I think they're cool. They've grown on me. I guess my only complaint is like if the music video is like completely different from what the song is about,
Yes.
because then I'm like, what's the point? So I feel like I'm into it if it can help enhance the story of the song.
Yes.
But if it doesn't, that kind of gets the
There's no
song
point. There's really
messed
no
up
point
for
in
me.
watching the
And
music
yeah,
video.
then like, no, like now, like if you want to do music videos like Springsteen has, done, where you're just kind of, singing them like on a stage and stuff, like I'm fine with that. I'm fine if it's, telling like a story of the song. But if it's not like related to what the song's about, then I'm just not into it
Yeah.
as much. I'm
And
like, no.
Springsteen has always done that. He has always just kind of shrugged on stage. Never. I mean, even like the Glory Day music video, which original, still, I mean, it kind of had a story. Had the started off with the baseball, but it still ended up him performing in front of a crowd, dancing in the dark music. No, Born in the USA video and Dancing in the Dark video are all like that. All of his new stuff. All the Letter to You stuff was just him in the studio with some old clips. Uh, Not bad things, but not as creative as I would have liked
You
when
can also,
seeing a music video.
not that I want to accuse Bruce of money grabbing, but I feel like if you just make a video that's like you performing at a concert, that's, as you're saying,
I
like
agree.
not a lot of creativity put into it, and you could see that as a bit of a money grab. So,
And the thing is, it's not like it's a real concert either. It's obviously just lip syncing. And I don't think Bruce chooses to do that. I feel like he would either direct his own music video and be really creative about it, but that would mean he'd have to focus at just as much on the video as the songs. I don't think he wants to do that. Or he'd just rather do no music videos, but he's signed to a record label, and the record label needs to make money, and so does Bruce. So I think they'd probably nudge him and have him make music videos. So, yeah, I think that's just something that happens with many artists. They're not in it to express their artistic talent. Some are, but some just do it because it'll get them more popularity.
And I can understand that, trying to get yourself out there, but
Of course.
I won't be maybe as into your music video then. But if it's really related to your song, and you're really trying to get the message of the song across, and the music video can help enhance that, well then be my guest and
Of course, yeah.
put that out, because that's fantastic.
Totally, yeah. So one more thing before we end this episode, I wanted to do a quick thing, non-music related. I just wanted to talk to you guys that we are aware that there is a Vision show coming out. kind of like a spin-off to WandaVision. I believe the title is Vision Quest, which is interesting, an interesting title. I'm excited to see the show. You know, it's good. WandaVision's my favorite Marvel show, so I think I'll really enjoy this. And Vision's just a great character, and Paul Bettany is an outstanding actor.
He is definitely a great actor. And boy, we got 2 WandaVision spin-off shows.
I
Agatha
know.
Coven of Chaos, right? And
Yeah, I believe that's what it is
now Vision Quest. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I'll be curious to see, maybe you know, like, who this is written by and stuff.
Uh-huh.
Like, is it a different team than the WandaVision team? But look, Vision, and now, White Vision is something that, they can dive into in the MCU. So yeah, I'm excited and interested to see what this will be about. Just my biggest fear with Marvel TV shows right now is that they're putting out too many. So
Yeah, I think that's everyone's fear.
fingers crossed. And yeah, and but by the way, as I said to you before the show, so glad we don't have to talk about She-Hulk anymore.
Oh,
Yay.
yes. But yeah.
Celebration
Yeah.
for that one.
That show was just kind of miserable to watch.
A disgrace to Kevin Feige and the Marvel Studios name, in my opinion. Like, they can do better than that.
Totally.
Like, that was
grab.
coming. Like, it shows what can happen when you put out so much stuff. Like, when you put out so much stuff, you're primed to, sometimes put out a bad thing. And boy, like, can you believe that She-Hulk Attorney at Law is from the same studio that produced Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame?
And we know they're capable of making good TV shows.
Last year was a great year, WandaVision was, great. Falcon and the Winter Soldier was better than all this stuff. Loki was so creative. Hawkeye was just fun, and I loved it. And What If was fun. This year, Moon Knight, most respect for, but Miss Marvel pacing and stuff, and She-Hulk, we know exactly what the issues are for that.
Yeah, we sure do. But yeah, that'll do it for today's episode of the Everything Podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And yeah, I will see you next time.